Let's go ahead and start tonight's episode off with an Explorer in a configuration you likely have never seen before. One pickup P90, but here's the catch, it's not completely juniorified, because we still have a full tune-o-matic and stop bar tailpiece setup. In the 50s, when the Explorer first launched, it was made out of Carina, it had 3 knobs, 2 humbuckers, and never had any other variations, outside of your headstock choice being the regular one, or the split fork headstock, similar to that of the pre-Explorer, the Futura model. So what I'm getting at is it's not like the Les Paul that had the Junior, which was a wrap tailpiece with a single P90, or the Special similarly outfitted but with the addition of the binding and the neck P90 and additional controls, as compared to the full Les Paul model. So to necessarily call this an Explorer Junior is not 100% accurate because look, we actually have custom style binding along here, which you only find on Explorer Customs, which came out way later than what we were just talking about. And this one still appears to be a mahogany body, but we have this interesting dark burst finish to it. I think that's pretty sweet, but pay special attention to our knobs. Since we only have one pickup, we don't need that third one. It's just master volume, master tone. And on top of that, we don't even need a toggle switch on this thing. So I'm curious, is there any routing underneath this guard or not? I would have liked to have seen it without a guard at all. But continuing on to our full body shot, now we can see the fretboard a little bit more clearly. We can confirm they left the regular dot inlays alone, but this actually has binding, which not all Explorers have. But we even have some fun on the back. The continuation of the burst job, that makes me think you'll probably also have it along the edges. But that mahogany wood grain, it's really cool. And if you really squint at it, you can kind of see a kind of cartoonish skull. So here's one eye. Here's another one. This is like his nose area. And then I suppose somebody really skilled could draw in kind of like a screaming mouth right here for him. Here's my best quick attempt to show you what I'm talking about. We also get the bursted paint job on the back of the neck and of course the headstock. And that whole package sleeps in this custom shop case with COA. And okay, it is actually still billed as an Explorer Custom. You know what? That makes a lot of sense because currently Gibson's not making the 58 reissue style Explorers in mahogany. Speccing down an Explorer Custom and paying a premium for it, pretty much the only way to make that happen. And it also makes sense of our headstock having these little mini Grover tuners. But that one was listed at $6,500. So about an $800 premium, and they went to a rosewood board and got rid of your mother of pearl block inlays. If you're interested in doing a similar custom order, you can check out the sponsor of tonight's episode, Sweetwater. They are very familiar at working with Gibson to create your dream guitar. Or if you really don't want to wait, you can visit them online and select something that they have in stock and pick out which guitar you like the best. Because these are the original guys that tell you not only the serial number and the weight, but has the individual photos. So if you're looking for a particular type of top, you don't have to worry about that uncertainty. They can even do a custom setup, upgrade your nut to bone or tusk, whatever you want before it even ships out to you. And feel free to check out their monthly giveaways. This time it's a $10,000 live sound and lighting setup. Thank you, Sweetwater, for being a longtime sponsor of my show. Now let's get back to some other guitars. Which the running theme for tonight's episode is a unique layout. This one is formerly owned by Josh Ramsey. It's a Les Paul Jr. And I've got to say, I tried to buy this because I thought it would be a really fun review and documentation. Because when I think Les Paul Jr., I think of very bare bones rocker, super simple. But this one has undergone this really cool lime green refinish and has been outfitted with an EVERTUNE system. Which, if you're curious about my thoughts on one of those, 2 years ago, a viewer of the show did a new guitar tape process on an ESP LTD Viper that was equipped with one. What they do is they ensure your guitar never goes out of tune, no matter what kind of crazy bends you do. And there's a few different ways to set them up. So something about that with the simplicity of being a junior was kind of enticing. I was kind of curious how he did this though, because I see these small holes and I would assume there's another one on that side, but I believe the whole reason they refinished this guitar was to hide some of the modification work and filling in some things. Like as far as the routing out the back, it was actually fairly minimal for this one. But this would have originally had a wrap tail piece right here and those holes would have been way larger than that. So maybe he had something else equipped on this guitar at some point, like a MIDI pickup. But it looks like we've got a master volume and some sort of a mini toggle over here. But whoever did the refinish work did a great job. And condition-wise, we've got a large ding up here and some chips out of the top of the headstock. But hey, at least our serial number's still visible. That one was initially listed at about $1,400. But here we go, an interesting one from the White Shag Guitars shop. This guy's always pulling up interesting things. Our unique layout in this situation: trapeze tailpiece on an SG. Okay, I can dig it. And then coming over here, we've got a harmonica bridge, very 70s influenced, very nice. But a humbucker P90 combination with kind of a sawn-off pick guard, so it looks 61 style, but not exact. But then if we come over here, what is going on? Those knobs are really close together. These are really far apart. We've got an edge output jack. That is just not how regular SGs look. We should have this going on. Output jack on the front. Your neck volume is just a hair taller than the bridge volume, but they're pretty equidistant for the most part. So here's where our history lesson can come into play. In the 80s, SGs actually were side jacked. Now, as far as this weird control layout, that's because this one is a bit special. A lot of people would read this title and be like, oh, SG R-1, that must be like some inventory code for this guy. But nope, that actually is a model from 1980-ish. It was a Moog-equipped guitar. You can check out a full review and documentation from 6 years ago here, but you can clearly see, oh, okay, there's our kind of strange look. Since these had the active electronics in it, they had a staggered layout, and you can see what's happened here is somebody has moved your top volume control to become a tone, and that's replacing the output jack, and then they drilled it in through the side. Because the SG R-1, it's a little hard to tell, but this is an extra thick and beefy SG because they needed it to be to fit the Moog stuff in there. And I'd have to line those old photos up to see, do the old mini toggles actually fall underneath the tailpiece, and that's why they were put there. But generally speaking, the SG R-1 is an ebony finished guitar, so I'm sure this thing's been refinished. Because then, yeah, you can fill things in, make it look nice. But that's why we have the layout we do. And that was all just from the first photo. What other fun things do we have going on? Well, mainly, look at the neck. Somebody has swapped out our inlays. Probably even the entire fretboard, because we've got EDS 1275 or 345 style. And yep, those are taller frets than normal, so that's going to be a nice player. And getting to the face of the headstock, doesn't look like they chose to refinish that particular portion, because that's still nice and aged looking. And oh boy, if you didn't catch that whole R1 thing before you got to the back, you'd be like, what on earth has someone done? But no, that's all kosher for what we've already talked about and know about this. But oof, here's the thing. When you have a long crack up the back of the neck that looks like this, that's truss rod trouble. However, it's also been refinished, so I suppose it could also be bad refinish work, but that is something to be aware of. But to be fair, that cracking might have occurred, and that's why they ripped the fretboard off, and they're like, hey, while we're at it, we're putting in our new rod, all that other good stuff. We might as well fancy up the rest of the guitar. If it strings up and works now, it could be a lot of fun. And speaking of weird stuff, here's one for 5800. That's a 59. What has gone on here? I'm not sure which is the bigger elephant in the room. Is it the humbucker routed specifically for the middle position because they were too scared to mess up the neck join? Or is it a very, very terrible placement of an additional volume control, most likely? Let's start with the humbucker. That looks like some sort of a Guild one, because we were just looking at that on that recent BC Rich Siegel episode. Now, whether or not that's actually what that is, we would have to look underneath. So let's see if the seller has additional photos, and as we go through, we can make some comments. Replace tuners. It's kind of Fender poke it down, wrap it around style. You can tell there's been other things on it at some point as well. Truss rod cover looks okay. We do indeed have a 1959 serial number. That's half the battle when it comes to these old ones. Still having a serial. We've got some sort of a new wrap tail piece on it. Back shows some good wear and tear. Still a lot of the cherry finish left, I would say. Weighs about 7 pounds. This is the reason why the pots are all crammed like it is, because they didn't have an additional router to professionally extend that and, allow you to do it any other way. They had just that much room in there and they were going to use it. But as far as originality, this one looks like it could be okay. This one has been replaced, and this over here looks like some sort of a mid-70s CTS pot, because it'd probably say like 137, and then whatever this is, it might be a 7, and then another 7 would mean 1977, 54th week. That would be a great indicator of when this might have happened. And you gotta remember, there weren't many aftermarket pickups available at that time. From what I've been learning, Guild is one of the earlier ones that would sell to other people, so I think that would make sense for that being what it is. But continuing on, hey, at least 2 of those knobs are original. I would imagine that has had a neck break at some point in time and someone's doweled it up. But P90 looks good. And hey, there we go, the exact same thing that we saw in the Rich. We had this thing on the back, and yes, indeed, zoom in there, it says Guild, made in USA. So the big question is, what do you do with this guitar? Do you fill in all the routes, have it refinished in like a solid color, or do you just rock it as is? I think it's really cool as a period piece because it shows somebody in the 70s that just bought a cheap old student grade guitar and wanted to modify it with the humbucker that they wanted. And that one did end up finding a home rather quickly at $5,800. But we can end out tonight's episode with a super fancified version of that instrument. I believe Gibson started making these around 2017, 2018, but they've slowly got fancy and fancier. So it's one of those double cut juniors, but they put a figured maple top on it and they give it the semi-hollow 3-ply binding. Every time I see one of these, I bring it up. Somebody please new Guitar Day one, and we come close, but nobody ever ends up pulling the trigger. They're just such expensive guitars for what they are, but they are super cool. But usually you don't find them with the triple P90s. So that's something that makes this one special, as well as somebody has converted it to a B5 Vibramate Bigsby. So the good news for you is if you don't want it to have a Bigsby, you can technically take this off, and in theory you won't have any marks. Most times you do have some faint impressions, but the original stop bar studs will be there. But this was kind of a cool neon orange burst finish. Then the back is just complete red. They've had a lot of different colors on here. I think I prefer either the Cobra Burst or the blue ones personally. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's recap, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.